Welcome, Tubinauts. Haven't done a video in a little while. Of course, like always, it's completely unscripted. I'm just rambling off the top of my head. So I guess the general idea of this video is twofold. One, if you've never played this game. Two, there's a certain friend of mine who says he doesn't know how to get into orbit. Then again, he doesn't really care. So, whatevs. Anyways, this is sort of how I start off my first save file or whatever. Whenever I play this game, I like to have my crew come back. I do not like to pay for, or I like to pay for my like, there's a tech tree in the game, so whenever I open up a new tech tree, I want to be able to buy the individual parts and not, have it done for free. I don't like decline penalties. Let's see here. I don't mess with any of these. I do like to give myself a lot of money to start off with, because, come on, NASA got a lot of money when they started off. And they did a bunch of scientific stuff before they ever went to space, creating a vacuum chamber and testing rockets. So we're going to start at about 1,000-ish on the science there. And then I want my Kerbals to level immediately. We don't need that. I like pressure limits, so that means, like, if you're going through the water or the atmosphere too fast, it can put extra pressure on your parts. Also, if you build your, you got a really big, heavy item that you're trying to push into space, and you got dinky little engines underneath of it, there's a big weight issue there. So, therefore, sometimes the weight will crush the fuel tanks as they're starting to empty, because, it's like a pop can, in between your thrust and your weight that you're pushing. It kind of like collapses in on itself in the middle. Let's see, the G-force limiter. I love this one. If you have a remote control device on your space vessel, then it doesn't matter if your characters black out, and as long as you have antenna communications range. So yeah, and then the G-force limiter, maybe, whatever, tolerance, means that my Kerbals will black out. They will go unconscious. They do not have a computer, then they are screwed. Alright, let's start this new world. Takes it a moment. There we go. Alright, so with the extra money that I have, I usually buy three things first: mission control, vehicle assemblability, and the launch pad. I'll usually upgrade these. You can see here the weight is only 18 tons. If I upgrade it, it's 140 tons. Vehicle here, I only have 30 parts that I can build on whatever I'm building. This is the most expensive one. That's kind of why I give it the most money there. Now I have a limitation of 250 parts that I can put on a vessel. And then this one here is always a good one to do, because yes, see, you have 4 missions here. These are kind of basic ones to kind of get you going. They want you to do, like, orbit, break through the atmosphere, and so on. So this is extra money that I can throw back into my program here. Expand the atmosphere, launch my first vessel. Doesn't matter if I launch a plane, a car, a jet, a rocket, And then gather some data from Kerbal, which is easy to do. That one can be done either on the ground or in orbit. like to check the lists here. Oh my gosh, look at how many smart people are here. Man. See, okay, I don't know how anybody else does it, but I like to hire anybody who has a smart bar that's below the letter P. So this guy is a genius, or is that a girl? That's a girl. Well, maybe she identifies as guy. I don't know. Anyways, we don't know since she speaks Kerbal. Another genius right here, and another genius right here. Oh, here's a scientist. Oh, and look at that. A lot of courage, too. So, do I have the money for her? Yes. And I only currently have 5 spaces. I don't have the money to expand the building that allows me to hire all of them. Sadly. Hopefully they'll still be there in the next couple of days. I know they like to refresh every so many days, or however many levels you get in the game. Okie dokie, so let's go in here, and, oh, that's right, I need to first, since I have science and money still, I need to go in here. This is the tech tree. You know, Space Engineers needs to have this. And funny little story. I originally bought KSP because the Space Engineers was going to add planets. So I decided, you know, I've always been curious how NASA gets into orbit around a planet. And so I bought this game. It's always been referred to as the flight simulator that allows you to go to any planet in the solar system. And so that's one of the reasons why I bought it. I wanted to learn. So I took a year off from Space Engineers and I played this game, learning how to get into orbit. We want this one. What? Oh, that's right. Let go. Buy it. Now, purchase it. See how when you do it individually, you can save so much more money. I know that when you check the little mark in the settings where it says, you know, items are automatically purchased, it doesn't come out of your money. So that is, it's like a freebie. As long as you have the science to get it, then you can get the parts immediately. But I didn't want to do that. We want this one too, because I like to have a little cross feed. Cross feeds are good. I have 100,000 left. We want this in fuel tank. We need this fuel tank. We need this little poodle engine. Let's see here. Do I need any of these? Yes, I need this one. 90,000. We'll go with just these basic wings. And this is the most important stuff. You need some science and communication. To get that science out, we need a decoupler. And we might as well get the other antenna. It's more powerful. And then here's another science, our pressure, atmospheric pressure. Sometimes it's nice to have a radiator because parts will get hot. Extra parachutes. We're down to 77,000. Do I need any of these? No. Do I need any of these? No. I do need this one. Need some retro rocket power. And it always never hurts to have a solar panel and a probodyne. See, this is like a little remote control device. As long as you got communications to Kerbal, if your pilots black out, then hey, you know, no problem. We can remote guide you in. And then fill that one out and fill that one out. How much science do I have left? Okay. And that one and that one. And These ones are nice. These are like, you can build your own shell around something that's not aerodynamic. But we'll be fine. Alright. We better be fine, because I only have $69,000 here, so, or Kerbal not dollars. There is no really kind of money value. So what we're doing is we're gonna try and get ourselves into space and also into orbit. Let's grab this, put the Probodyne right underneath, zoom in here. Gotta use the keyboard to do some extra mouse button movements and all kinds of other fun stuff. Now, I only have the fuel right here, tin monopropellant inside the can itself. So these are literally just for show, in a way. What do we need next? We need a battery, don't we? Yes. That's one of the cool features right there. Even though you've paid the science, you can still right-click on that and open up and buy the battery, or buy the device. So we'll take that, and then we can actually make these go down a little bit further, because we don't want the jet of this hurting that. I know it's pretty far away from the center of mass. Oh, come on. And here's how you can get like the atmospheric lift, the center of mass, the thrust, so on. How you want the shapes to be locked to grid, or if you want it to be free of grid, and then if you want it to be one on there and one on there, you know, or I could make it, you know, for example, I can make it a bunch of them, but we're just going to have two. We only need two. We don't have a lot of money for this mission anyways. We'll go ahead and put a solar panel there, and then we need some communications. We don't need a lot of communications, so I can get away with just one antenna and put it aerodynamically that way. Let's see here. What else do I need? I need my science. Pardon me, I had to cough. Okay, we got our temperature gauge, and we got our barometric pressure, and I could do the gooey goo, except it's gonna make my vessel a little off-centered here. So this is where we gotta do some custom stuff. Put it up like this, kind of push it into the hull like that, and then we'll turn my solar panels like this. How does that look? Whoop, I gotta have two. Gotta have two. Gotta have two. You never know. That looks horrible. There we go. That looks better. Okay. And then, I guess what we could do is try and balance the weight. Now this is one of the fun things about the game, is that you have to sit here and go through the whole building stage. Man, he's not going to be able to get out and do a spacewalk yet. We don't have the technology for that. So, therefore, I think that's kind of balanced, right? Hopefully it won't be going all over the place crazy. So let's get some parachutes on here. Parachutes, like Perry Mason. Alright. That's more than enough chutes to make sure that he comes down safe. or she, whoever I send up there. Alright, and then we go to our coupler. Our coupler is a very important piece. Allows us to separate from the other pieces. And you notice over here I have an action bar, which is controlled by spacebar when you're actually flying this. So these are different stages. And hold on a second, I gotta take a sip of my coffee. Oh, that's good coffee. Really hits the spot. Alright. Hopefully my audio shows up pretty good on this. So we got a fuel tank here. This fuel tank is medium stage 1, so it's got about 180 and 220 liquid fuel and oxidizer. So the oxidizer is basically your oxygen that you're bringing with you. That way it can run in space and all that fun jazz. And we don't need a very powerful engine. We just need this little poodle. I think that's what it's called. No, it's called the Terrier. There's one that's called the Poodle. There it is, the Poodle. Alright. So that's gonna be our second stage. And to make sure that we're actually going in the right direction, like a dart, the top one here, I'm gonna make them a T as we're flying through the atmosphere. And normally, to bring back the most amount of money, I'll sometimes put parachutes on my different stages so that I can recover the piece and get money back from the launch itself. But it also requires you putting like a Probodyne on there, because if you don't have a Probodyne on there, then the game just automatically kind of collects it but doesn't give you the money for it. Like once it comes down, it just kind of like nobody's observing it, therefore it just kind of deletes it. Something to think about when you get more skilled at the game. Alright, and then my first stage is going to be this gigantic rocket, solid booster. Put that there, and we're going to bring it to a whopping 60% thrust. So you can't control the thrust on these things. You have to do it in the build stage here first. You have to limit the actual thrust at the bottom of the solid booster down here before you actually launch. And you can see here we have our staging. And one of the things you can do here is see, like, this engine here is going to activate as soon as we get rid of this, right? So we can put it right down here, and as soon as I hit the spacebar to disconnect the solid booster, this thruster will also engage at the same time. So pretty cool. And same thing with this. I could pull these parachutes down onto this separator, so that the minute I separate this, the parachutes activate. And grab this, and I want 4, yes, so it did the right thing for me. We're going to do 4 like that, and then these 4, we're going to bring them down to about 70 should be good for their output thrust. And then we need to make them aerodynamic. So let's go ahead and grab these and put them on there. Sweet. Alright. And then we're going to take these and we're going to try and make this vessel stable with that. Oh, come on. Okay. Fine. We'll come down here and do that. Hopefully this thing doesn't wiggle around too much on its coupler here. That would be a bad thing. I know this video is going to be a little bit long, so if you've already watched 20 minutes worth, guess what? It's probably going to be about another 20 minutes longer because of the launch stage. And then we're going to take these bigger fins here, and I'm going to put 4 right there, and then another 4 right here. So this thing should point where I want it to, because I have no gyroscopic forces except for the dinky little gyro inside the cockpit there. Hopefully I won't have a problem. Now, if you notice here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have these 4 engines fire first, and then once they've completed once they're exhausted, I'm going to fire this one in the middle, which has even lower thrust control. That way, you'll see. It's like a 4-stage vessel, but the first stage is really a 2-parter that stays together. And we're going to do a meridian start. So I'm going to point the vessel in a meridian launch. If I had the little cab pointing this way or that way, it would be a polar launch. But we don't want to launch around the poles. Alright, first time is so fun. And check my staging. Check your staging, as a certain YouTuber would say. And I'm pretty sure I've got everything. Now all I have to do is figure out who I want to throw up there. And let's put the scientist up there, because when you have a scientist on a science mission, whenever you do science on the vessel and they're controlling it, then that means that you're going to get that much more science out of it. And let's launch. I know it's a little overkill for those that have ever played this game. That is a lot of thrust to, that's a lot of delta V to get to space. Right now, the thrust limiter is going to be useless to me because we're on solid boosters. Not until I get to this engine will I have that thrust control. And this is another important thing when you're launching, trying to keep this needle between this peg and this peg. If you start to get to this peg here, which is getting above the green, then you're wasting fuel and thrust. You might want to, slow down a bit. And then our nav ball here, we're looking directly at the sky, so this is the top of the sky right here. And what we're going to do when we launch is within the first 1,000 feet, we're going to want to point the nose down to this first ring, the bottom of the ring. So here we go. Press spacebar to start. Nice slow thrust. So this is editor me. I'm still working out the sound in this game, but the gyro in that cockpit turned out to be pretty weak, so and also my thrust was a little bit lower than what I should have had it, so it did a lot of gravity turn on me there. And I'm just basically explaining that, I probably want this nose to be a little bit more up until I hit about 10,000 feet, because once you hit above 7,000 feet, you're kind of through the first layer of the atmosphere. And I was also picking up a lot of speed here, which was creating a lot of heat. See there, I'm talking about 10,000 foot area. But 45-degree angle here isn't so bad once you're at about 20,000 feet. So I kind of did that a little bit early, burnt a little bit more fuel than I should have. Yeah, so as those 4 engines start to empty, I switch over to that last one while we're about halfway up. This is about where airliners fly in Kerbal. After you get about above that 25,000 feet, the engines cut out. So there we go to the last engine, and I think the volume got to the point where I can cut out here in a bit. So I'll probably have to pop in a couple more times because of the volume issue. Granted, I gave myself a lot of money and a lot of science. If you're really die-hard about it, you can start off with bare minimums, but you're probably going to have to build something like a little jet or a little car to drive around and do science on the planet first before, now I really need to point the nose down. Come on, let's turn in the RCS here. Get that nose down. I think I'm going to be able to make orbit with just this one first stage. Because we're now out of the atmosphere of Kerbal at 70,000 feet. We're technically in space. We've got plenty of thrust left here. So I'm going to let it keep going. And I've got my thrust here off, so that when I disengage this piece, my engine doesn't immediately start pushing us. That's a bad thing. You don't want that to happen. You want to control it. Alright. Now we don't need that. And away it goes. And press that. There we go. Pull away from it. It's so majestic. So quiet and silent. Now if I hit M and go to the map here, we can see what I've got here. So that was a lot of thrust. We're going to be hitting an altitude of 264,000 meters, which is good. And we're already got a curvature of half the planet here. So you can imagine the line here goes through the planet there. And so when we get close to this apoapse here, we're going to want to use the engine of my second stage engine here, which I can control now with my thrust control. Which, if I go inside view here, when I increase my thrust, we'll see the thrust controller move. It's a nice little vessel. Simple controls. And, okay, let's see here, go back to outside view. And while we're up here right now, we can go ahead and do my science. We are in a vacuum. We can go ahead and transmit that. I think we got enough electricity for that. And then the thermometer says that we are very cold. So we'll do that. And then let's do a barrel roll real fast. That way she can actually look at Kerbal through the little window and do a crew report. Yes. Alright, so this here is a list of some of the things that I've done, I've achieved, science, Another science. We've escaped the atmosphere. Let's see here. We've achieved our goals. First vessel, 25 meters per second, 500 meters, altitude 80 meters per second, 2,000 meters above 250,000. Yeah, it just goes on and on and on of different achievements automatically. These are just kind of automatic achievements, not ones that I've actually selected. See, I selected launch our first vessel, so I got this extra $2,000 for that. Yeah. And then as soon as I make orbit here, let's go ahead and barrel roll again. Oh, that's right, I got the green goo. And we are in space, so we can go ahead and open that up. And I don't want to transmit it, because you see, if I transmit it, then I only get this much science, and I lose this much over here. You see, if I transmit. So what I want to do is just keep it, and it'll just sit inside there. Now normally, since she's a scientist, and if I had the ability to get out of the vessel, I would be able to fly around and have her collect the material and put it in her pocket. Also, this is her G-force limiter right here, and this is her skill tree. The skill tree is important. Like, let's say you're on the moon and you have a buggy, and you pop a tire or something, then you need a level 4 engineer to replace the tire, you know, something like that. Scientists can give you more science, and they can also collect science from devices like this. Alright, where are we? We're almost there. We're about 2 minutes away. So, one of the wonderful things about Kerbal Space Program, instead of Hellion and Stationeers and other games that have orbital mechanics, Kerbal allows you to fast forward time, which is important because Kerbal has a full solar system, and literally you don't want to sit there at your computer desk for a year just so that you can fly from one planet to another. You want to be able to fast forward and enjoy the game. So we're almost to our apoapse. We're about a minute away. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to do my thrust here, because I want to watch my... Sorry about that again. Yes, I'm basically watching to make sure that my periapse gets above the atmosphere on the other side of the planet. And then I can kill the engine and everything's all quiet again. I'm sure the thrust is louder. And there we go. We're above 70,000 feet on the periapse. And therefore they said, hey, you have officially made it into orbit, which is great. So now that we are officially in orbit, it's awesome. I'm gonna go ahead, just to make this video short, I could go ahead and go around the planet a few times. That would increase this Kerbal's scientific experience. But instead I'm not. We're going to go ahead and point retrograde. And I'm just explaining that you don't want to go too deep in the atmosphere or you'll burn up when you come in. So I keep it at 50. Right about there, that's good. 50,000 meters above the surface. It's not going to be too thick of an atmosphere, so we're not going to burn too much. But that will help us slow this down over here. And then of course we obviously still have a lot of fuel left in my second stage thruster. We could even, with this amount of fuel here, we could go to either of the two moons if we wanted to. Do a flyby of either this moon or this moon, because If you can make it to this moon, then instead of going to this moon, you should have the fuel to always go to this moon. If you have the fuel to go to this moon from Kerbal while orbiting it, then you should be able to go to that moon. It's kind of a general rule, once you're free of a gravitational field, you should be able to go out there pretty far and barely use any fuel. So, alright. And if you're wondering what this little thing is you can put it down here, and then it'll always stay. If you do that, and then you right click on the space there, then it disappears. So, with the magic of Kerbal's time acceleration, we're going to go ahead and time accelerate here until we're about 70,000 feet, where it's going to slow my time acceleration down. As we start to enter into the atmosphere. And we're going to use the engine as a heat shield. So I'm going to want to point retrograde again. Oh, my electricity is going fast. That's not good. And then I'm going to hit V one time, and that's going to put me into free cam. And since I'm getting close to the atmosphere, to a planetary body, when I hit that V to change the view, it now makes the camera the bottom of the camera is tied to the body of the planet. So this will make it easier for us to do the re-entry part. So these wings, it's inevitable. I have no radiator. So these little wings are the cheapest thing in the game. And they can't take much pressure and much heat. They were useful when I was launching, but honestly they're gonna burn off as I come back in, which is fine. I don't care. They shouldn't blow up the fuel tank or anything. And what we're seeing here is high atmospheric plasma that's doing this heating effect. Turn this around so my scope is looking the right way. I don't want to have to reverse my controls in my brain. I used to do that when I was younger. So yeah, those are going to burn a bit. We're going to go ahead and fast forward to my lowest altitude here. And while we're burning through the atmosphere right now, if you notice over here, we're actually aerobraking at the same time. So we're reducing our apoapse over here. But as soon as I get to the 50,000 mark here, I'm going to hit that engine and slow me down even more. But because we're in the atmosphere, I don't want to do it instantly. I don't want to instantly 100% thrust. We're going to slow. Alright, so we're slowly slowing down, watching the pressure on the vessel. And yeah, it's dropping your altitude quite fast. You don't want to drop all the way down to the surface. You want to do a little bit more of that aerobraking. And then, of course, as we're dropping through the atmosphere, there's certain levels, like the 20,000 feet is where jets fly. 49,000 feet. Once we drop into 30,000 feet, the pressure is going to hit even harder, and we're going to get a lot of sound occurring over the vessel, and that's where a lot of this volume issue is. I'm going to have to really play around with those sound settings. But the other issue is the parachutes. You want to slow down at a certain speed. You got to be doing like 250 meters per second for the big parachute, and I also have some high altitude atmosphere pressure parachutes on there, but I don't fire them right away. You'll actually see those good.
on the
Might even land
on
on
the side.
pyramid.
There will be a
That would be
color
nice.
change on the parachutes here
There are
that
Easter eggs in this game.
tell you when you can actually deploy them or not. I don't remember how far this loud noise goes on or how much you can hear me over that loud noise. Like I said, I'm really going to have to play around with the sound settings so that I can get that set up. I'm about to bleed off 200 meters per second before I hit the 30,000 feet there, so it's definitely going to increase the sound here because you can see more of the vapor trail. And of course there goes those little wings. They're cheap. They're like $100 each, and they have no vertical controls. They're just kind of like a dart. You got to worry about that when you're flying a vessel into space. That it's really a dart that you're creating to get out of the atmosphere. So yeah, we're definitely slowing us down because the engine does start to overheat a little bit here. It starts a little heat bar here, and when that heat bar gets really hot, then it creates an actual heat bar over here that quickly starts to heat up. So you want to burn off a decent amount of speed due to your altitudes, and it also matters in what planet you're visiting too. The other thing that I was pointing out is that the heat and the pressure on the tank can make that fuel inside there explode. There's a little generator on my thruster that's going to start every time I kick it on. So here we are coming up to 20,000 feet area, so we need to bleed off that speed to get 500,000 which I wasn't doing right away. And I was getting concerned about that heat on that engine. It was only half of this course, so it wasn't getting too close to air depth. So I should have let off that 500 meters per second when I first hit 2,800 feet. Because now I'm getting into some really dense atmosphere. I mean, I've had some jets that can fly at that speed and that altitude, and they'll burn when they're going through the atmosphere like that. But here we are, we're getting down into the lower Mach speeds, and I'm going to let the audio take over. About 250 meters per second is what you need for using parachutes, and I'm getting close to some mountains here, so probably going to use that engine a little bit more here. We're at 10,000 feet already. Slow down here. 9,000 feet. Alright, now we can use our parachutes that are watercolored. I'm not going to recover the fuel anyways, so we might as well just go ahead and keep
So here we go. We've got a list of the scientific things that were still in there. The goo gave us a whole whopping 10 and a whole whopping value of 1 because I brought it back with me instead of transmitting it. So I got a grand total of 35.5 to add to what I already had for science. And then the parts that I was able to recover and the funds, how much it cost to make the device or buy it in the first place, and how much I recovered. So grand total of 3,996 Kerbal dollars went back into my money fund. Now there was a lot of achievements that I did, so that's why I'm now up to almost 4,000. And then my crew member leveled once, so she's got 1 star. There is a way to go in and actually look at what they got. She now has 105% for science, 105% for science experiment parts. She can reset experiments, run experiments from EVA, and her G-force tolerance now has increased to 1.1x. That's pretty good. She technically orbited Kerbal 2 times. So this is kind of like a metadata. Anyways, hopefully this is informative of people who want to play this game and didn't know how to get into a stable orbit. And that's one of the ways to do it with the least amount of money. The other reason why I do the vehicle assembly stage is because over here I can save money by keeping this one at 30 parts. And so I'll build like a really big, powerful plane that's over 30 parts. And what you can do is you can come in here and you can actually load SPH, which is Space Vessel Hangar. So you can load your planes from here in this big hangar, which is designed to do more than those parts. The only problem is that when you launch, you'll be over here on the gantry, and so you'll have to taxi your plane over to the runway. That's the only thing. I mean, it saves you money when you don't have it right away, is to just upgrade your space launch hangar and then just transfer your planes over to it so that you can launch it from the launch pad over to, yeah. Anyways, hope those tricks and tips and all that is good information. Holy crap, I went 10 minutes over. It's now 50 minutes on this video. So, anyways, if you like this video, give it a thumbs down. If you have something really nasty to say, then give me a good comment. Yeah, enjoy your 2018 year. Hopefully it's a fruitful one and we'll have less fake news.